So what makes internet horror so terrifying? There are many aspects of horror that people may be scared or disturbed by, and in traditional horror movies it's typically jump scares or gore. However, when it comes to the new age of internet horror, there are a few different things at play here. And no, I'm not talking about the overdone analog horror, distorted faces, or the jump scares that creators will use to get a cheap scare out of their audience. I'm referring to the slow burn and suspense-based horror that does an incredible job at building an atmosphere that makes the viewer feel unnerved. In this video, I'll be using the Walten Files and Skinamarink as examples due to the fact that these are two of my favorite pieces that have ever come out of the internet horror scene. What do they have in common, and what makes it unnerving? Audio design. For the most part, these aren't series that rely heavily on visuals. They aren't extremely cinematic, especially if it's analog horror in the style of Skinamarink, where the whole movie's visuals just rely on your imagination looking down dark hallways and in bedrooms. This isn't to say that they don't have cool animation or art styles, but I feel like traditional horror movies have more of a 50-50 ratio of sound design to visuals, giving it a good balance. However, internet horror series typically strike me as more effective when they have more of a 60-40 ratio, audio design being the deciding factor as to what makes it convincing. But that's not to say there aren't horror series that don't have great visuals. That's why taking audio design into account is so important, building the ambience and setting the tone for your audience. In an interview conducted by Sagan Hawks, I think that's how you pronounce that, I don't know, my bad. When he was interviewing Martin Walls, creator of the Walten Files, Martin states that one of the most important things in a horror video is sound editing and design. You could put a super happy image, for example, children playing in a park, but music and sounds can change the whole mood of the situation. If you use disturbing music and sounds, the whole situation takes a 180-degree turn. And when I heard this, I knew exactly why this type of horror was so effective. I felt like it kinda shined a light on how important audio is in general, and this inspired me, especially since I was an audio major. One of the first examples I can think of where I was so disturbed by the audio in a movie is from Sinister. This movie basically traumatized me. Granted, it was from the disturbing tapes in the movie of people being tortured, but there was one particular thing that was so eerie and enters my mind whenever I think of this movie. The soundtrack is a song called Gyroscope by Boards of Canada. At the time, I didn't know why just hearing this song in a couple parts of the movie would terrify me to my core. I guess it's because of the repetitive drums and the fact that it just sounded like a creepy tape on loop. But something was just uncanny about it. The voices in the song where you could just barely make out what they were saying was so eerie. But how does this relate to modern internet horror? The uncanny. It may be a trope now, but if it's implemented correctly, I believe it can still be effective. We've all heard of the uncanny valley, which is something that looks human but isn't. And this is so powerful to the point it can trigger a fight or flight response. So what if you hear something that sounds human, or barely intelligible, but you can't quite make it out? To me, this is pretty much the audio version of the uncanny valley. It plays on your fear of the unknown and still remains one of my favorite elements to this day. So the same thing applies to music as well. It already has the ability to literally change how we feel when we listen to something. The fact that you have the ability to alter people's perception of something just by changing frequencies and rhythms is something I've always thought was incredible. Definitely overlooked. So if you're a horror creator, please do not lack in the audio department. The past. This is something that you're never going to stop hearing if you watch my channel. I absolutely love everything about nostalgia. Most of my channel is based around this topic, and most of my videos are going to incorporate this somehow. Nostalgia is such a powerful feeling. Everybody feels nostalgic about something, and to me, that makes it the perfect way to take something somebody loves and remembers as a wholesome moment in their life and just make it absolutely terrifying. Analog horror has done an outstanding job with implementing the nostalgic 90s VHS aesthetic, which worked for a while, and there are creators that still do this style very well. But I think for the most part, it's kind of played out. I feel like that's something everyone can agree with, which is why I find digital horror more appealing. At least to me. It's that early 2000s flash aesthetic most people my age would have experienced as a child, but made to be terrifying. This genre is still in its early stages, so maybe there will be another series besides Ches Kids or Lacy's Pet Shop that will take the internet horror community by storm. So what makes this type of horror scary to you?